Hey guys, welcome to Money Mindset and More. And today I'm going to cover something which is too much into media in these days, the GDP growth of companies, trade war, and other things. And there are certain things which are not, I would say, which can be represented differently, but just to show a different kind of picture, people are not showing the reality. That is what I feel. And I'm trying to go and explain my point of view on that. So you must have seen a lot of growth percentage of major economies in the world, and I'm going to cover the four largest economies in the world, which will be United States, China, Germany, and India. Now you must have seen that many news outlets and media channels show that India is growing the fastest, around 6.4 percentage. China is around 4.5, US is around 2.5, and Germany is around 1.1% growth year on year as of now. Now, seems like the India is growing faster, 6.4, and China is growing 4.5, but the percentage difference is almost 2 points, which is actually, people might be thinking India has a lot of growth. India is definitely growing, but these percentage doesn't represent the right picture what I see, and this is how I'm going to explain to you. So let's say India is growing at 6.4 percentage, and the current GDP of India is around $4.5 trillion. So if you take 6.4 percentage of $4.5 trillion, you will get additional $288 billion worth of GDP in next 1 year. So India might be at 4.78 something by end of, let's say, 2026. So India will add net $288 billion worth of GDP in next 1 year as with the current rate of 6.4. Now let's come to China. China is growing with 4.5 percentage. Most people will think they are growing less than India, but in reality, if you see, the China has a current base of $20.6 trillion worth of GDP, and when you take 4.5 percentage of $20.6 trillion, they are going to add at least $927 billion worth of GDP in their growth this year. What it means that they are growing almost four times what India might be growing in this year. Percentage doesn't show that. So now if you add that amount, China will be in the range of something like 21.57 billion trillion dollars by end of 2026. So they will be adding $927 billion in next 1 year. Now let comes to US. Everybody is sharing on media that they are growing only 2.5 percentage and things like that. Their downfall is there and other things you must have seen. The truth is that their overall GDP is $36 trillion, and if you take 2.5 percentage of $36 trillion, they will be adding almost $900 billion in their GDP in next 1 year. Again, four times of what India is adding at 6.4 percentage growth, and they will be in the range of something like $37 trillion by end of this year. Let's say 2026 United States. Again, only 2.5 percentage growth, but they are adding net addition in the economy is four times of India. Now let's comes to Germany. They are going 1.1 percentage, and they are around $5.3 trillion if I'm not wrong. So they will be adding around, let's say, another 58-60 billion dollar in their net GDP, and they will be in the range of 5.35 or something like that. And while the gap between Germany and India is narrowing over the years, and India will be definitely third largest economy by current rate, they should be by end of 2027 or early 2028. But when it comes to their comparison with the other two largest economy, China and US, they are still not adding enough net GDP in the economy. Percentage growth is definitely higher because India's base is very small. If you see, US is 36 point some trillion dollars, China is 20.6 trillion dollar, India is 4.5. China is already 5 times of India, and US is probably already 9 times of India, right? So the the difference of size of the economy is huge between these countries. So whether India will cross Germany, definitely cross Germany. Whether India will cross China or US in next 50 years, definitely something worth looking into. That India has to grow at least 10%, and US doesn't have to grow in next 50 years to cross. India should cross in US if US doesn't grow for next 50 years, and India should grow by 10%, which is impossible, not going to happen. Now let's look at how the numbers can play a game here. The dollar to INR, that ratio, the conversion is currently looming around 90 rupees per dollar and things like that. Against that number, India is at 4.5. Now imagine the rupees become stronger and it become 70 per dollar, 70 rupees per dollar. Without, and because of this impact, is because of this currency conversion, or rupee becomes stronger. Without adding any additional GDP, India's GDP will be like 5.5 or something like that, because the conversion is going to be higher against the dollar. So I am pretty sure this you have to watch when you are watching those GDP numbers. Always try to see what net additional GDP is happening in the country, any country, and in their local currency before turning into USD or pound or euro or anything, because those numbers can be always manipulated, but real GDP adding in the country is totally different. So when you are comparing India's growth, comparing local currency, this is what I will do. US growth against US currency, and China's growth against yuan, what is their currency, and then you can see whether they are actually growing or not. Definitely India is growing. It has potential. Definitely it has potential. I myself betting on India. But whether they are growing enough to become comparable to China and US, that is something definitely debatable. I don't see that happening in next even 50 years with current growth rate and things like that. And while India's political system is very stable in last 15 years, which is amazing, and that's why you have seen a lot of growth. But being a democracy, that will change, can change anytime, and the moment it changes, it all depends upon how the other governments are going to come and react on reform and other things. As long as current government is going, definitely the projection is very good. India might be in the range of 10 to 15 trillion dollar in next 10 years, which is actually going to be very amazing. But whether it will be replacing US as a second largest and China is the largest, like some studies I have seen, by 20, 2075, India will be second largest, beating US. I don't think so. No, that is just manipulations of data. In reality, I have lived in both countries. It's not going to, I don't see that rigor, I don't see that infrastructure, I don't see that honesty, integrity, which US has. So very hard. But whether it's going to be possible or not for India, it's definitely possible. Anything is possible. Whether the citizens are ready for that in India, I don't know. In US, they are very invested. Another data point: when we are comparing GDP, in US, almost 40% of the population invest in stock markets, equity, and large corporations, compared to India, which is probably around 3 to 5%. And that's why you have seen companies like Reliance, who have a lot of assets. Still, their valuation is around $237 billion, if I am not wrong, their market cap, compared to the Nvidia, which is $4.4 trillion, and only a semiconductor, what you call chip manufacturing company. Whether it's comparable, definitely Reliance is far more potential, and it is undervalued if I compare with US companies, because the Indian population doesn't invest enough in the market. So if India has to become a growth pattern of US, almost 25%, 30% people in India has to invest in these bigger companies so that they can become a giant, and in turn India can become a probably much larger economy. So yeah, these are the points I wanted to share, and please share your comments, share your thoughts, and like, share, and subscribe. I love to have your views on my channel, my content. Again, thank you very much. Bye bye.